Okay, this is a recent painting that I did. I won't go so much into how I paint or what I'm doing with the paint. I like what Howard Hodgkin said about painting. He said there's a picture, and then there's the painting. And I've always been interested in the painting and not the picture. How something is painted has always held my attention. And when I go to shows or look at work, I always look at how it's painted. But more important than that is where I get my imagery from. I've been going to Mexico for the past 4 years, spending 2 or 3 weeks at a time. And where I predominantly go is a town called Guanajuato, which is 5 hours north of Mexico City, in the center of the country, and it's in the mountains. And so it's like you're standing in a bowl, and going up the side of the bowl are how the houses were built. And they're all these different colors. It's like looking at a Miro painting. And that town was founded back in the 1400s, and it was in the 1600s that the Spaniards started developing the town as they discovered silver in the mines. And there are these fantastic churches and cathedrals all throughout this town of about 40,000 people. And it's like going back 300 years in this town. Very little has changed. It's a heritage tour town, so modification can't be made to it. There are no cranes, there are no construction, there are no developers. It's like stepping back 300 years in time. There are no stop signs, sidewalks, there's sidewalks, there are stop signs, crosswalks, policemen. The traffic is very minimal. It goes through the mountains. The streets are just large enough for one car to pass through. It's tile streets. It's just fabulous, and the people there are just so patient and so kind. I know very little Spanish, and I haven't had any trouble the 4 years that I've been going there. I'll go and I will sit in the churches. And Gary, you were talking about cathedrals. Most of my work is taken from the forms and shapes that I sketch from in cathedrals. And I can sit in a church for like 2 hours and do sketches, go to another church. In the area where I go, there's about 12 churches. And again, they're all like cathedrals. You can change the slide. And so what I do is that the first couple of years that I went there, I would do sketches, quick sketches of what I was looking at. You could see like the buildings, the perspective, the vaulted ceilings. And then at night, I would go back and select an area in my room. I would select an area in that sketch and start doing gouache paintings. And so I would do about 100 gouache paintings while I'm there and about 100 sketches while I'm there. I bring these back to New York and I work off of these again, but this time onto the canvas. And I paint with acrylic, and I'm always flipping through my sketches and my gouache paintings, trying to find shapes that I saw in Mexico. It's the shapes that I'm interested in and what I see. This past year when I was there, I was doing a lot of gesture drawings. And these are very quick. You can do a lot of these. I probably did about 200 gesture drawings while I was there, and about 80 gouache paintings. The gouache paintings are a little more involved. But I'm looking for the shapes that I see in the architecture there. You can be walking down a street, you're back 300 years in time. The facade, the buildings, the shadows, the smells, the light. It's also different. It's also different. Every culture, as you know, has different elements. That's why we travel. But I have found Mexico to be a place where I go to get my imagery. And so I'll do not only sketches of the churches, gesture drawings of the shapes inside the churches, but also of the town, going around the town. The shapes, the shadows are changing like they do in New York. The shadows change throughout the day. The color of light changes, which I'm very aware of. You can go to the next slide. And it's the next one. We just saw that one. And it's the quality of light that I find there that is so interesting, that holds me. Now, there's one more that is not coming up. Guanajuato is not a tourist town. If you were to go there as a tourist, you would see everything in about 6 hours. what it is a place to go and be, to absorb the culture. There's another slide. To absorb the culture. Well, maybe I'm wrong, there's not. To watch the people, enjoy the coffee, enjoy the food, and just it's just the ambiance that just absorbs me. And that's how I get my imagery. That's where I get my imagery. Doing these sketches, looking around, coming back to New York, zooming in, finding shapes that I see in my sketches, and I start working with those shapes. And then it takes off from there. As you know, a painting has a way of, like, you know, just taking off and going in directions that you weren't even capable of thinking about. So that's what happens to these paintings. Abstraction to me is very important. Colors, as you can tell, is very important. The quality of illumination. Some of my paintings are painted more opaquely. The use of the paint is more opaque than what you're seeing now, which is translucent. So I don't have any of the opaque paintings tonight, but I go between the two, between an opacity, where I'm building layers on top of layers on top of layers, and here I'm building layers with translucency. One thing that concerns me in my work is what I call intervals. It's the space between where colors meet. It's not edge to edge. Lisa, if you could zoom in on this one.
Sure.
A little more, a little more, a little more. Okay, like if you look at that yellow shape on the right-hand side, you see yellow going into like a dirty yellow, and then it goes into that kind of brownish. And what I call intervals is that dirty yellow that's in between that sort of brownish shape and that yellow shape. That little strip there is an interval. So I don't always paint color against color, but I just naturally have these. Lisa, if you can find another area, I just work with these intervals. Keep going. Well, it's not showing so clearly now, but that would give you an idea of what I mean by the intervals. But beside that, what's the most important? What's really important to me is where I go to find my ideas for shapes and light and color. When I started going to Mexico, my color palette changed a lot, and this is it. This is it. I don't know if I'm going back this year, given the circumstances in world travel. I don't think I'm going to be able to make it this year. But I want to say one thing about the churches and cathedrals there. There's one church there that was built in the 1600s. It's a basilica. And from the front door to the altar is like 60 yards. And then you find activity and life is out on the street. There are festivals on the street. There are people riding horses. If there's a marriage ceremony, a groom will ride up to the church on a horse, followed by 30 horsemen behind him. They're all dressed in black and traditional clothing. There's a lot of culture there, a lot of ancient Mexican culture. It hasn't been affected so much by the 20th and 21st century, fortunately.